Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here on a lovely, beautiful, crisp morning here, even though we're in springtime. It's sort of the weather hasn't quite caught up with us yet. So I hope it's absolutely perfect wherever you are in this amazing globe of ours. So we're going to kick the show off with the Simply Tarot card of the week this week, and it's the Six of Swords. So it's boat or over water travel, but usually it's the secondary meaning, which is turning your boat out of troubled waters into much calmer times. So if you've been feeling a little bit frazzled in the last week, which I know many of you have, because we've just come out of the full moon in Aries, which is always a very intense, powerful, fire-driven, emotion-driven sort of full moon. And because it's in the first sign of Aries, it always denotes that we're sort of cleared a lot of stuff out. We're ready to open up a new book as far as full moons are going, and we're ready to sort of embrace lots of new things. But at the same time, it can be a little bit daunting because all of a sudden we sort of feel like we've been in a chaotic sort of situation with energy going every which way. And we'd just like to calm things down now. It's sort of like turn our boat out of troubled waters and head to the much calmer waters that are ahead. So I'm pleased to say that's what we'll all be doing in this next week, is moving into much calmer times ahead. So if you've had difficulty sleeping or concentrating on things, know now that the energy is sort of shifting, which is good. So it leads me into the astrology section of the week where as I said, we've just come out of the full moon in Aries, but we still have a couple of major planetary configurations that are going to affect each and every one of us. And the first one I want to start off with on the show this week is Venus, the planet of love and affection, is conjunct or holding hands Mercury, the planet of communication, and they're both sitting in the very intense sign of Scorpio. So what this means for us lay people is that if we have an emotional issue that we need to discuss or talk about with a loved one, a family member, a colleague, somebody that's close to us, be very careful in the way that we present this. Yes, you might feel very passionate about the subject that you're talking about, and you might be speaking from the heart, but make sure that it's very clear, because sometimes when we've got this planetary configuration in Scorpio, people tend to sort of misinterpret the truth or misinterpret the way they deliver the truth or the message. And it can sometimes be seen as being a little bit deceitful or not being completely truthful. Sometimes it can be such an intense situation that it's very prickly or uncomfortable for you and the person that you're sharing it with or the people that you're sharing it with. So let's just be mindful of the fact that it may not be quite as easy to broach this subject as we first thought. It may be a little bit tricky. They might come back with a response we weren't expecting. It may be very emotion-driven, and it might be very sort of intense emotion-driven. So just be aware of that, because it's not necessarily the perfect time, in my opinion, to bring up a subject that might be a little bit tricky. I'd be sort of be inclined to sort of leave it a little bit, because emotions are very charged and very deep running emotions. It could bring up stuff that you weren't expecting to be sort of brought up. So on a much more global sort of scale, we've still got Saturn conjunct or holding hands with Pluto in Capricorn. And it's sort of like the world stage is still primed for all this political rubbish that's going on around the world, and everybody's focusing on economies and money and, you know, where the economy might be going in your neck of the woods and how can we best get out of this. And then the politicians get up there and spin their truth. And I call it their truth because it's not necessarily always the truth as we know it, but it's their version of it and their interpretation of their truth and what they think we should know. So I think we can expect a little bit more of the same in the coming weeks and months of sort of politicians getting out there and waving their flag of how busted important they are and how they've got everything in hand, and we mere mortals have just got to follow suit. I don't think that's always necessarily the case, but what we can do as individuals, I think, is take control of our own finances, our own spending, and look at ways that we can maybe improve our own bottom line and not necessarily rely so much on the economy that's going on around us. Make sure our economy starts at home with us and our personal spending. That takes me on to the famous person of the week this week. And because we're in Capricorn, it'll be nice to feature a Capricorn male who is an actor. And it's somebody that I'm sure there isn't a person around the globe that doesn't know who I'm going to talk about when I announce who it is in a moment or two. He's somebody that oozes charm, somebody that is the epitome of a Capricorn. He's drop dead gorgeous. He's also sort of always seems very easygoing. Nothing much seems to bother him. He's been able to play so many diverse, different roles, won so many awards. There's just too many shows to mention, movies, things like that, Academy Awards that this man's won. It's the one and only Kevin Costner. And I mean, I'm sure there isn't a person in the world that doesn't know Kevin Costner. You've seen at least 1 or 2 or 10 of his films, and each one is so different from the last. He seems to be able to embrace the role. He makes it his own, and he makes it look so easy, as if he's, sitting there in your lounge room on the couch telling you a story, and he's sharing it with you in words. And, I mean, he's taught us all to play baseball in Field of Dreams, and then we went on from that to sort of learn how to play golf with Tin Cup, and then he, one of the most amazing films that I think that I ever saw him in was Dances with Wolves. And it was one of those movies that, it left an impression on you of just how amazing that film was. Each time that you watch it, and I've watched it many times, you still take out of it something that you've never seen before, a hidden message, and just the way the film was shot and his role that he played in it. And then you go on to other films that Kevin was in, and I think probably one of the very first ones that I ever saw was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And I thought, who's this drop-dead gorgeous-looking man? I just sort of sat there mesmerised, and I don't know that I really absorbed the film time because I was admiring the scenery. But a very beautiful film, and it had so many amazing actors in it, and it was just a film that kept you on the edge of your seat. And then, to create history with a very controversial film that he starred in with Whitney Houston. And at the time, I don't know whether we realised around the world, it was one of the first times, if not the very first time, where we had an African-American female fell in love with a white person, and they had a love affair, and it was on screen. And it was one of those most beautiful love scenes where, she gets off the plane and she runs towards him at the end of the film. It apparently was one of the first times that had ever been put down in a movie form. So they made history. And I know at the time, each and every one of us took something different out of the movie, The Bodyguard. And, the music was sensational, and Whitney Houston certainly did an amazing job of the vocals in the film. And the film was interesting, and it sort of just showed you that, how different people react to different things in their life. So it was probably one of the most iconic films ever made, and it will go down in history for those reasons. So this week I want to feature the clearing candle, because I feel that this is really important after all the chaotic energy that we've had, and sort of, being so sort of emotionally charged and so much electricity in our lives with the full moon in Aries, that I thought if we backed it up with a clearing candle where we can just sort of calm everything down. Now, even if you don't have a clearing candle at home, I want you to just get any candle that you've got, close your eyes for a couple of minutes, and put the energy into it that you're going to clear anything out of your life that is no longer necessary, that you want to put sort of like a nice, clean, fresh sort of energy through your home, through your life, through your emotions, so that you can start to sort of be ready to take on board the new opportunities and the new situations that are coming to you in your life. With an extra large candle, they will burn up to about 100 hours. They have a dual wick system in them, and I like to light one side one day and one the next day, but that's just my personal preference. But I also want to show you the fact that we do make up gift box sets that are very, very individual to your own needs. So this week I've actually made up the gift box set with a full moon candle in it, also the candle that represents Aries, but then I've put the good luck candle in there at the end, just to sort of show you that we don't always have to have 3 of the same candles in a gift box set. You can make it as individual as you like. So the combination is endless of how you want to set up your own gift box of candles. There's 28 in the range, so there's something there for everyone. And, we've had an amazing opportunity in the last couple of weeks. I've been able to screw the prices down a little bit more on our suppliers. So everything right across the board except for readings at amandahallpsychic.com has had a little bit of a price reduction, which is wonderful. So for those of you that don't want to work with the energy of a candle, you can always get a melt warmer down at your local department store. which gives you the opportunity to take a couple of teaspoons out of your wax, put it in your melt warmer, and sort of use that instead of a candle. It's a safer option. It's something that you can turn on and leave on and don't have to babysit it. It's great in the office. It's great at home. I use these probably more than I do candles now because I have that flexibility of being able to turn it on, switch it on of a morning, say my little, what's on my list that's underneath my melt warmer, and then walk away and forget it. And sort of every time I walk past it, I give it a little bit more of an energy and think about what I'm actually focusing on for this week. So I hope that sort of helped you understand where things have been going in this last week, where we've had so much energy happening from the full moon, and it's been such an intense time. And so many people sort of say to me, I don't understand why I'm so affected by the full moon, Amanda. I never used to be when I was younger. Is there something that I'm doing different? Is this why the full moon is affecting me now? It's not so much that the full moon affects you more. I think it's as you become more aware and you start to open yourself up psychically and start to listen to your own inner messages, or your messages that are coming from the other side, from your guides and your passed over loved ones that are important to you, that you start to feel energy on every level. You can walk into a room full of people and feel whether the energy is very friendly or whether it's negative or whether you need to be on your guard. So the same thing is said for the energy of the moon. So it's not necessarily the moon's getting more intense. It's just that you're becoming more aware. So we're going to go to our first caller, which is Chris in Inglewood in Florida, USA. Are you there, Chris?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Thank you.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Chris?
I'm stuck, and I need to know where my next place on the planet is.
When you say your next place on the planet, are you talking about where you need to move to, or what you need to change in your life to sort of get things moving?
I think where I need to move to, where I need to be physically on the planet.
Okay. Bearing in mind, Chris, I'm in Australia and I don't know a lot of your landscape in the US, but I will do my very best to sort of help you with this. The first thing that they're sort of showing me is that definitely where you're living now, in the environment that you're in, it is coming to a close. So you haven't imagined it. It is time now to make some very drastic changes in your life, and to, I think, be open and ready to go wherever the universe wants to send you. Now, having said that, I don't think that's going to happen next week. I still think there's a little bit of waiting time before we get the real definite message of this is where I'm meant to be. It's like you won't be able to mistake it. You won't miss it. It's like what you need to do at the moment is just keep going on with your life. Don't sort of try and get bogged down in what's the next step? Where am I supposed to be going? What am I supposed to be doing? Because what we actually do then is it's like we dam up the energy and we block it, and we can't then get any inspiration or any answers. They were showing me that there will be a move and there will be a change, but I don't think it's going to be till the early part of the new year. So having said that, again, I want to sort of just tell you, let's just, get on with day-to-day living and just allow yourself to settle. In as much as you know that there's change coming, you've already established that, you don't know where you're going, so let's just enjoy what we've got. I keep feeling it's going to be, if you were to look at it from the southern side of a map, if you were to look at a globe from sort of with having Australia down the bottom, then I feel you're going to be going northeast of where you are now. So I know that's a broad description to sort of say where you're going, and I know Florida's on the coast. I still feel it's going to be on a coastal sort of area, but I'd sort of like to sort of take you north of there. So if I was looking at it from Australia, it's northeast. So it's something north of Florida, but it's not what I'm seeing as a major city. It's busy, but it's not super busy. Do you know what I mean? My producers just put up, it could be Georgia, South Carolina. It's very helpful that North Carolina. It's wonderful that I have a producer that helps me with Virginia. And it's one of those sort of areas where I just sort of feel that, you'll be drawn to it. It's like, I don't know that you're a prolific dreamer, or if you are, that you don't remember them, but there will be something that will either come to you in a dream or like a dreamlike state. You could be busy working and all of a sudden it's like you get taken off into this other universe, and you sort of see, oh, that's where I'm going. I've seen, the state of. and you sort of think to yourself, oh, okay, that must be the answer. So just put that to one side and then see what else manifests. But when I went to say that, I was going to say to you, I see the state of Georgia. Now, look, I'm not definitely saying that's where you're going. That might have just been what my guides gave to me to share with you as an example of, this is what you're going to get. You're going to see the visual map of that. So let's not take that as gospel. But I do know that you will know where you're going. Oh, yes, my producer's putting up on the screen that it could be Atlanta in Georgia. Well, that's a possibility. I remember watching Matt Lockett. He was in Atlanta. But I just sort of feel that by about March, or Savannah, I just sort of feel by about March, you know exactly where you're going and what you need to be doing, and it's all very, very crystal clear for you by then. So it's good. So I feel that that's where we need to leave it, but I know that you're going to make the right decision. You're really in tune with what's going on in your life, and that's really, really good. So enjoy the time where you are now and just get ready for the major changes that are coming next year, and I wish you luck. So we're going to go to Stephanie now in Bethlehem in Pennsylvania. Are you there, Stephanie?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Stephanie?
Yes. I wanted some insight about my career.
Okay, Stephanie.
And about my about career and about finances.
Okay,
and where I'm going.
Career and finances, funnily enough, seem to go together, don't they? If we don't have enough finances coming in from our career, it can make everything very, very tricky. The first thing that they were sharing with me, Stephanie, is the fact that I feel that you feel as if you've been in a bit of a rut, and it's been that way since about May, June this year. Is that how you've been feeling?
A little bit.
Yeah, and they're showing me that energy of that feeling is going to intensify a little bit more yet before we actually get some clear direction on what the next step is. So it's like we've just put the saucepan on the gas, but it's not even lukewarm yet. We've got to wait for it to get to boiling point, you know what I mean, before we add the next ingredient. So if you look at your life like that, it's only lukewarm at the moment. We've got to allow it to get to boiling point before we add the next thing, or we look at what the next change is. I don't feel uncomfortable with the job that you've got. I just don't feel that
you feel uncomfortable with what? I'm sorry, you feel uncomfortable with what?
I said I don't feel uncomfortable with the job that you've got.
Okay.
I think you're more bored than anything with it. I don't think that it's necessarily the wrong job. I just feel that you could do so much more. I think that's what the problem is.
Okay.
So by having said that, I feel we've got to look at, if you're going to change jobs or change careers, we need to make sure that you know exactly what it is that you're aiming for, and do you have enough skills in your skill set to be able to make that happen. And I think that there needs to be some little bit more training or an upgrading of a skill before we make a change. Again, I want to come back to, I don't know that there's going to be a change for you, Stephanie, before the end of this year. I'm sort of feeling more towards the early part of the new year and the first 3 months of the new year, where I feel then that's when everything's at its strongest as far as a job change or a career change coming up for you. With that, I think is going to come more money. But I'm going to say to you that even if we had a lot more money to throw at things at the moment, I still don't think we'd get instant answers. I still don't think we'd get everything sorted out yesterday. I think the major thing here is that you've got to sit down and take yourself in hand and look at where your spending's going. It's not so much that you don't have enough money. It's sort of like it's going all different directions. And I think we need to get a little bit more control of it and sort of take control of your finances and make sure that you're making sure that your money's starting to work for you. And then I think you'll start to feel as if things are progressing and you're starting to achieve what you want to achieve in life. It hasn't been an easy year. It's been a year where you haven't really been able to get a bit of a run on. You know, every time you think you're going somewhere, something else has come in and sort of, you know, taken you off course. So it hasn't been the easiest of years, and particularly even on a financial level, when you've got a little bit of traction going, then you got an unexpected bill or something broke down and that sort of took, you know, right back to square one again. So that won't be that way next year. So I do feel that, you've been doing the right thing. It's just that I want to see you sort of be a little bit more diligent as we head towards the end of the year and keep your spending in check.
Okay. And do you see anyone around me, like any past family members that crossed over? Any explanation? I have an unexplainable passing of a relative. Like, do you see any guide, any like relief from all the stuff that I've been going through? Like you said, in the later part of the 3 months of the next year, like, do you see any success? Like, I feel like I'm chiseling at things and it's just not happening. I'm all over the place right now, but that's what I'm talking about. Any guide? Is there a guide that I can be looking for? Some symbol, anything?
Okay, look, your guides change constantly. There's no one person that's passed over from the family member to a close friend or whatever that becomes the number one person that takes care of you or guides you or helps you. They can change sort of constantly. So there's no one particular person you should be looking for. So this person that passed over sort of quite mysteriously, was that a male?
Yes.
Because they're showing me that they don't have the answers either. There's 2 question marks. That's what they've shared with me. There was 2 question marks around their passing that are yet to be answered. And it's like they don't have an answer either to be able to share with you. I'm not saying you won't get the answers. I'm just saying they don't have the answers themselves to share with you. And sometimes that happens if the person is taken quickly. They don't always know the whole extent of what the circumstances were that led to their passing, particularly if it was an uncomfortable sort of situation. They might be blocked from seeing that. And it's not something that you and I can sort of begin to understand. It's just sometimes people sort of are just taken without them being able to see what's going on around them on the physical level when they cross over to the other side. What I can suggest to you is that if you have a particular question or an issue in your life that you want answered, don't direct it to any one particular person on the other side. What I want you to do is have a conversation out aloud prior to your going to sleep and ask whoever has got the answer to put the answer to the question in your mind first thing in the morning, so that when you wake up in the morning and your first thought, as obscure, as random, as peculiar as it might seem, write it down, because that will be a piece to that puzzle, to that question or that situation that you asked. You've got to remember that they can't control us from the other side. All they can do is give us little pieces to a jigsaw puzzle that we have to put together ourselves, because it's up to us to live our lives. They can guide us, they can give us some information, but they can't give us all the answers. That's up to us, because that would be seen as being controlling. I did pick up there was the male that we talked about, but I also felt there was 2 females strongly around you at the moment that seemed to be sort of, I'm going to say, holding you up. It's like I could feel that one was on one side of your body and the other was on the other side, and it was like they were holding you up to keep you going, as if they were giving you the strength to continue out the rest of this year. I know you said it's like you're chiseling away at things. Well, they want you to keep doing that. It's not that you've done the wrong thing. You haven't done the wrong thing. It's just some years are more difficult than others, and this has been one of the more difficult ones. But they keep showing me that they're helping you get to where you need to go. So it's like, let's try and not look too far ahead. Let's look at what we need to do today. And then tomorrow, when we get to tomorrow, let's look at what we need to achieve in that day and do it that way. And I think it'll be more manageable, where if we look at the whole big picture of what's going on, it's like, oh dear, I get a bit, overwhelmed with everything that needs to be sorted, and where's money going to come from, and how do I deal with this, and how do I deal with that? So let's break it up into more manageable pieces, Stephanie. And by doing that, I think we'll start to feel like we're making some progress. But I know that 2020 is going to be a much better year for you than 2019 was. And I know that you've got a lot of divine guidance and help coming from the other side. You've just got to believe in it. Put the pieces together, and sometimes the pieces to the jigsaw just need to be laid out in front of you. They don't always come together in interconnecting pieces. Sometimes we get one piece from one part of the puzzle.
Okay, do you have a name of the women or any initial of?
No, darling, they never share names with me, and they didn't give me anything else other than they were female. I only saw them from the back view. I couldn't even tell you what color hair they had. They were just showing me or giving me that their energy was there and they were helping you. That's all they were giving me. So I can only give you what they give me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sweetie.
All right. And what about
right,
love? What about like romance and things of that nature? Do you see anything coming or anything about?
I do see romance coming, but I don't think it's going to be in the first half of next year, Stephanie. I think it's going to be, we need to sort out these other areas first. Unfortunately, sweetie, we've come to the end of the show, so we're going to have to leave it there, Stephanie. So I wish you every success with the things that are going on in your life. So on next week's show, we'll do it all again. We'll have our Simply Tarot card of the week, the candle of the week. We'll take a couple of callers and we'll have our little glimpse around the universe. So I hope that this next week is a lot calmer for you now that we have the full moon is sort of well and truly behind us and we're starting to move towards. But don't forget about Venus conjunct Mercury or holding hands with Mercury and Scorpio. If you've got any sort of intense communication that you need to talk about with your lovers, or your loved ones or your children or family members or even co-workers, just tread carefully because it's the time to sort of be considerate of everybody else and not be in too much of a hurry to try and sort out everything yesterday. We have the luxury of time on our side at the moment. We can just sort of all breathe a little bit easier and just sort of take our time with things. You know, formulate what we need to say maybe, not necessarily is it the time to open our mouths. So until next week, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic, sensational week. Be kind to each other. Don't forget to bring some music into your life. Music, I think, is food for the soul, and I think we could all do with a little bit more music, uplifting, positive music in our lives. And, you know, there's many, many beautiful artists out there that I'm sure you can put on the turntable and really enjoy. So until next week, bye for now.